What's up everyone, it's DJ Contour, and in today's video we're going over how to make a beat for beginners. While making this video, I assume that you already have a DAW of choice and a basic understanding of how to use it, so we'll be going over the basics of beat making, not DAW fundamentals. The first thing we need to understand when learning how to make a beat is its basic elements. The first and arguably most important element is the drums. They're the driving force of your beat, so they need to be crisp, clear, upfront, and punchy. The second is the melody. This usually consists of chords and a top line, but can also be just one or the other. Third is the lead. Typically, this will be the artist or vocalist that is featuring on your beat, but if your single is intended to be an instrumental, it'll consist of a bright instrument or a synth to stand out. The fourth and final element are the supporting elements. These consist of swells, downlifters, fills, vocal chants, pads, ambient textures, or anything else that might fill the track out. Now that we have a better understanding of the basic elements of a beat, let's get started. When I start making beats, I like to start with the melody because it's the main inspiration for the whole track. There are two ways you can come up with a melody for your track. You can use a loop or a sample. Samples are great for beginners or finding inspiration for your own melody. Or you can make it from scratch. When making your melody from scratch, you can play around with your instrument for inspiration, or you can make something that you already had in your head. To start making our melody, we're going to need to find a good tempo. Typical tempos for hip-hop range anywhere from 70 to 140 BPM. 70 BPM is our lower range, which will be our emotional, chill, or sad beats. 90 to 100 BPM is our middle range, which will be our fun, poppy, and fast-paced beats. 140 BPM is our top range. That can be similar to our 70 BPM beats because it's double time, or it'll end up being our heavier trap, club banging style beats. I already know that I want to make a trap style beat for this video, so I've already got my project set to 140 BPM. Once you get started, you can always change this to your liking. So I already have an idea of a top line in my head. I'm going to use a synth patch that I picked, hum the melody, and pencil in the notes. Let's start with a 2-bar loop. Bum 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 bum, and then let's duplicate that across. Although it sounds cool, if we just loop this over and over, it's going to get boring. So the reason I only did 2 bars is so that I can duplicate it and make some changes to keep things moving forward. A good rule of thumb is adding changes every 4 or 8 bars. This will keep the song from getting boring and keep things moving. In this clip, we're going to change the last 4 notes. I'm going to move this top note down for a light variation. Now we're going to duplicate this clip and make a change to the last 4 notes of this one. And all of that together sounds like this. Because we're making a trap style beat, I'm not sure if I want to do chords yet, so let's move on to the drums for now. To make our drum pattern, I'll be using my new Hip Hop Drum Collection and 808 Collection Volume 1. You can get these now at djcontour.com/shop, and I'm also going to post a link to these in the description. When I start arranging my drums, I like to start with the hi-hat and the snare. Mainly, this is because they're usually fixed to a certain degree, and they help me keep the time of my melody while programming the kick and the accents. For the same reasons I talked about while making the melody, I'm going to start with a 4-bar section. I'm going to find a hi-hat sample that I like and start with a standard 16th note pattern. I like that one. As I listen back, I'm going to see where I can add some hi-hat rolls. So now that I've added these hi-hat rolls, I'm going to duplicate the entire section and make a different change. That sounds pretty good. Now let's add our snare. I'm going to find a snare sample that I like. Drag that in. A typical snare pattern is on every third beat. So let's count that out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's duplicate that across. Now I want to add some accent claps on top of that. Back into the pack, and let's find a clap sample. That one sounds pretty good. And then we're going to duplicate that across as well. This sounds pretty good, but I think I want to add a percussion loop to spice it up. This one sounds pretty cool. Let's drop this in. I like that. I think I want to pitch it up, though. That's nice. Let's duplicate that. Now let's try to find a kick drum. That one's pretty nice. Let's drag that in and start to layer a pattern. The way I like to lay out my drums is to play the loop and then stop when I think a drum hit should go. Now that we have our first 4 bars laid out, let's duplicate it and change it. Boom, boom, boom. That sounds pretty good. Now that our drum pattern's done, let's add the long-awaited 808. Back into the pack. And let's find one. For this, I'm going to use a sampler. That way we don't have to manually edit each sample. The first thing we need to do is make sure that our 808 is in tune. So I already have a tuner loaded up and I'm going to play some notes. According to the notes I'm hitting on my keyboard and what the tuner is telling me, it is actually in key, which is perfect. So now I'm going to listen along and try to come up with an 808 pattern. One thing you can do if you can't hear your 808 when trying to make the pattern is to pitch it up an octave. That helps you hear the pitch a little bit better. Then, after you make your pattern, you can pitch it right back down. So that sounded pretty cool. I'm going to layer that in. So we obviously made a little mistake here. Let's go back and clean that up. Bum, bum, bum. Now that we've got a nice drum loop, let's make some minor gain adjustments to make sure everything blends a little better. I'm going to solo the drums and take a listen. The first thing I notice is those hi-hats are a little bright, so I'm going to turn those down a touch. I usually like to start in increments of 5 decibels. I think -10 actually sounds pretty good. That actually sounds a lot better. Now I want to address the kick and the 808. I have a volume tool on my pre-master that'll tell me how loud these are. So I'm going to start with the kick drum. So the peak is -14. Now let's do the 808. So the peak on our 808 is -17. That's only a 3 decibel difference. I'd like to be at least 6 decibels apart to start. So I'm going to drop this down 3 more decibels. And that sounds a little better. Now that we've got a pretty good loop going, I want to add some supporting elements. I think the first thing I want to do is find a nice vocal sample. So I think I like this patch right here. Let's listen back and try to place it in the mix. Let's clean that up. And then I want to duplicate this across. I think I might actually want to find one more vocal sample. And we'll go in and clean this one up also. Next, I want to add some type of ambient texture. I think some strings might sound nice. I think this one sounds pretty good. Let's record it. Now let's duplicate that and make a change. After making some tweaks, the whole thing sounds like this. The last thing I want to add is some basic sound effect samples. After sifting through, I found a bunch of samples and layered them up like this. Now that we have most of our hook laid out, let's start with the main arrangement. A basic beat arrangement consists of a few things: an intro, verse, sometimes a pre-hook, and a hook. These will be duplicated throughout the track in increments of 8 or 16 bars. Since we already have the hook, let's duplicate that. I use these handy little markers to keep track of where I'm at. Now let's start with our intro. The intro is a stripped down version of the main idea. I like to make my intros short and sweet, so we'll make it 4 bars. I'm going to start with our synth, but I'm going to make some changes. Let's copy it over. I'm going to pitch it down. And that might also come into play later when we arrange our verse. Now I want to find a riser or a white noise sample, or possibly both. Let's start with a white noise. This one sounds pretty good. Let's drop this in. And I didn't like how that landed, so I want to clean this up a little bit. I want to stretch that out. Just like that. And let's see how that sounds. That sounds pretty good. So let's go into our risers. This one might do well. Now we know it's way too long, so we're going to shrink this down. And then we're going to stretch this back out as well. Now with sound effects, I like to have them fairly quiet. So I'm going to start with -10 on both of these and see how that sounds. And that's still too loud, so let's go -20. That's good. And I think I might also want to add those strings in. And I think how we're going to do this is just one long note, and then we're going to volume fade it in. And then I'm going to do a volume automation on this. That sounds pretty good. Now that we have our intro done, I want to move into our verses. So what I'm going to do is copy everything over from our chorus, and we're going to strip it way down. Since it's a chorus, we know we don't need any of these sound effects. So let's delete all of this. I don't think we want any of the vocal for this one. Or this vocal. Now, when I said this part of the intro might come into play, we're going to drag this over and utilize that. Now, because this is the verse, we want to dial the drums back a little bit. I'm going to start with our hi-hat and just make a straight pattern. And then I'm going to duplicate that all the way through. Now I think I'm just going to do a straight 808 pattern as well. And let's duplicate that. And I think I'm actually going to take that out of the first 4 bars. And I think I'm actually going to take that out of the first 4 bars. The final thing is to adjust our kick drum a little bit, make this more basic. So I like that. I'm going to delete the second and copy that over. Now what I want to do, once again, because this is the verse, is actually drag all these drums out. So let me delete this and see how that sounds. And then to keep our changes going, we're going to delete the accent claps for the first half. Now I think I want our kick drum to come back in halfway through that as well. Now I want to duplicate this over to the second verse. And we'll add a little bit more to it. So here I think we want the kick drum to come all the way through from the beginning. And I think over here, we're actually going to take these strings out for the first one. I think we're going to delete the first half of the strings. And I think we're going to bring the percussion back for this verse. Now that we have our verses done, I'm going to make some adjustments to these choruses so they build on each other. I think in the first chorus, we're going to get rid of one of these vocal chops. I think that's the one we're going to get rid of. And then we will bring the second vocal chop in at the second half. So it's going to sound like this. I think that sounds pretty good. I also think we're going to get rid of some of these sound effects in the first chorus. Now let's pull all these drums out for the last bar. And we'll make a transition. Now, because we made a transition there, we need to add a riser or a white noise. And now we just need to add some risers building into the final choruses. Now let's add some downlifters and we'll be done. Now that we've got our beat arranged, I'll end this video by playing it out. If you'd like to see me mix and master this beat, make sure to let me know in the comments. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel to stay updated on all my new videos. And head over to djcontour.com/shop to get these drum kits and other freebies today.